Good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you are in the country right now. Welcome to the latest edition of On Track Live. We appreciate everybody coming out today. Again, just a quick reminder: we record these sessions, so if you're not able to make it on the at the appointed hour, the recordings of these sessions are all cataloged on the NCTA members only website. You can go back and listen to those at your leisure. Real quick before we get to our discussion with our guest today, just a couple of announcements and couple of brief newsy updates. If you've been reading the On Track newsletter, you've seen that EPA is getting down to brass tacks now on a bunch of the deregulatory activities that are driving some changes in the coal markets. The most notable ones came out last week. They've now started the formal process of rolling back the carbon regulations on power plants, both existing and proposed, and also rolling back the mercury standards back to the 2020, back to the teens levels for the MATS regulations, taking away the ones Biden cranked up to try to close more coal plants. We were chatting with Randy and Melinda before everybody got on here. I know it feels like, for those of us who read the news every day, it feels like it's been a couple of years since Trump took office, but we're now only on day 150, and they're making good on their word. We've had a number of these regulatory activities rolling out and getting started, and things are still going at drinking from a fire hose pace. One other thing that I know is interesting to some of the folks that follow this call, just today, in the Federal Register, Department of Energy moved to formally reestablish the National Coal Council. Many folks who are involved with us here at NCTA served on the National Coal Council previously. The Biden administration allowed the Coal Council's charter to lapse and said it was going to replace it with another body that was going to have a wider representation, including environmental groups and all kinds of things. They never got that done. They never got it impaneled or held any meetings. So as of today, they've officially dissolved the thing Biden said he was going to do and have reinstated the National Coal Council. Those of us who are involved in the National Coal Council are working with DOE right now. I'll be meeting with them next Friday to get the ball rolling, and the new National Coal Council will be running for a 2-year term. So those of you who were involved before, we've got your names on the list. If you're interested now, I think it's going to be a smaller council this time. I think they're looking at maybe 50 members. But if anyone has interest in getting engaged in that federal advisory committee to DOE, make sure you shoot me your name so that we can put you on the list for consideration. Email address is Wardo, WARDO, at wardo.com. So that's it. That's it for news updates. A little shameless self-promotion. NCTA scholarship applications are now being received again. Scholarship deadline is July 31st. A lot of information on the NCTA website. Also check the On Track newsletter. Melinda has produced some flyers and letters and posters and things. We really encourage NCTA members to send these to your human resources departments and your plant managers. Get those posters up on the bulletin boards, because these scholarships are open to any employee, to a family of any employee who works for an NCTA member company. And these are for both college and vocational scholarships. So please help us get the word out. The deadline for receiving scholarship applications will be July 31st. Other scheduling notes, real important, rail car teardown is back. We've got another rail car teardown organized for August 11th and 12th. It'll be held at the shops in Alliance, Nebraska. Unlike some of our previous rail car teardowns, where we've been capacity limited on the number of people we can get into a shop, this is a great big shop. All right, so we can take as many people as we want. So if you've ever wanted to do one of these things where they'll roll in 3 or 4 rail cars of different configurations and different kinds of mileage on them, jack them up, tear the trucks off, open up the wheels and brakes, and show you all the parts. The vendors will be there to show you the gauges and all that good stuff. It's one of the most educational things you'll ever participate in. So watch the on track in your inbox for registration details that will be coming out shortly, but mark your calendar now for August 11th and 12th in Alliance, Nebraska for the rail car teardown. And while you're marking calendars, don't forget NCTA fall meetings. We're going to be back at the casino there in Scottsdale again, at the Talking Stick Resort. We've been there before. It's a great venue. And we'll be there October 13th to 15th. So make sure you put that on your calendar. With that bit of self-promotion, let's get straight to our guest. Many of you already know Randy Eminger, great friend to NCTA, even bigger friend to the coal industry. And with all the focus that's been going lately, kind of at the federal level with the executive orders coming out and everything else, it dawned on us, we've been kind of overlooking the amazing amount of work that's also going on for coal right now at the state level. And that's Randy's bag of tricks. Randy's spent the last 42 years representing the electric power industry. He started his career as a government affairs director for Southwestern Public Service down in Texas, New Mexico, Oklahoma, Kansas. In 1995, Randy joined the American Coalition for Clean Coal Electricity, the National Trade Association, worked with them for a number of years. South Region Vice President, he was responsible for 11 states from Texas to the Carolinas. And then following his tenure at ACE, he was Executive Director at Energy Policy Network for a good while, and now is working for a number of groups. Right now, Randy's working for the Energy Policy Network still. You'll remember a lot of their slides from Mike Nazzie's presentation at our spring meeting this year. He's also working for the National Mining Association, Peabody, and the state of West Virginia. So Randy's got a better view of what's going on in the states, both in terms of power plants having their closures delayed and in terms of what state legislatures are doing to help coal get back on its feet here. And we're very appreciative for Randy taking the time to be with us today to give us that update. So Randy, I'll turn the time over to you. Everybody else, I'm watching the chat box. If you have questions for Randy as we go along, feel free to type them in there, or we'll also have a little brief Q&A session after Randy runs through this slide deck. So Randy, take it away.
Thank you, John. I appreciate the opportunity. And you're right. Most focus is on the federal level. We've had, I think, a good 6 months this past session in a number of states, which I'll run through and talk about. As John mentioned, I like to start off with good news, and we had to put this in little 8-point type because there's 37 coal fuel power plants in the last 3 years that have announced delaying their closure. Those plants range from a 1-year delay to a 8-year delay in some cases, and then there's a few that you'll see that have a no set date for closure. Some plants have been purchased by independent power producers that plan on continuing to operate those plants, maybe not indefinitely, but for a long, long time. So anyway, over 30,000 megawatts of generation. If you wanted to break it down, you would be looking at, on an annual basis, 48 million metric tons of PRB coal. Annually, the Appalachian is about 12 million tons annually, and Illinois Basin about another 11 million tons of coal annually in those delays. So that's some good news. That doesn't include TVA's recent announcement on their plants, their coal fuel plants. They're 4, as you know, some of them are very large in the TVA region. They have not formally come out and said the exact date that they're going to delay those, but with a new head of TVA, it's fully expected. They have announced that they're going to look at focusing on keeping their coal fuel generation operational. So I'm sure we'll probably see a number of additional plants added to this list, and we'll have to drop down to a 6-point type or something at some point in the future. On to basically the bills that have passed this year. I wanted to focus basically 9 states that have passed bills that I feel like promoted coal fuel generation in their states. And then one that you'll see in blue, which is executive orders out of the Governor Braun in Indiana. And I'll touch on those executive orders at the end as well. I'll run through this alphabetically and just give you highlights of each bill that was passed. Again, I do have a list of the bills and a link to the actual legislation if you want to look through that as well. Happy to get that to you as a resource, John, as well. Alaska, basically, I put that up there. They passed a bill to do a study at the University of Alaska Fairbanks. As you know, the Cook Sound is running out of natural gas. The state of Alaska is getting pretty desperate on a way to find out to get electricity. They have the one coal fuel plant up around Fairbanks, but they need additional power to continue to go forward. So they are looking at the possibility, maybe as the first state to build a coal fuel power plant. It would be way in the future if they do, but they obviously solar, as John and I talked about, with 6 months out of the year being dark or almost dark, it's hard to have solar. A lot of the wind is not real good as well in some parts of the state. So they're looking at their options there. I will go on to Arkansas. Arkansas passed two really good bills this time. Senate Bill 463, basically it disallows the utility from doing a settlement agreement with the Sierra Club or an environmental group unless it's approved by the Public Utility Commission. In the past, the utilities have been able to come up with a deal. As most of you recall, we call it sue and settle, where an environmental group sues over a coal fuel power plant and the utility finds that it's more economical to close that plant at a future date than to add additional controls, scrubbers or something onto the plant. So that bill was good. Also, Senate Bill 596 in Arkansas, it mirrors a lot of the Kentucky bill that passed in 2023. If you'll recall, the Kentucky bill kind of led the way that said a couple of things. One, you had to have a rebuttable presumption before you could close a coal fuel power plant. The utilities would have a higher bar to justify that. Also, before they could close any baseload power plant, they'd have to have an equal or greater amount of baseload or dispatchable power online and operating before they could close the existing generation. That sounds common sense, but as we all know, we've had supply chain delays. We've had a number of things where we feel like we can get the new generation up and on board by a certain date. So we sign a consent decree to close a coal plant on that date. And then we find out there's delays in natural gas pipelines, transmission line delays, lawsuits, and we end up with a situation where we're short of power in some situations, as you know, from the RTO and NERC and FERC studies that have recently come out. More and more generations being closed before the new generation is up and in place. So that's what the Arkansas bill does. It mandates that. Missouri basically passed a similar bill. It goes a little further. Basically, the Missouri bill does require that you have to have an equal or greater amount of dispatchable generation up and on board before you can close the existing coal fuel power plant. They also have to identify, the utility does, potential capital projects, investments to extend the life of a coal fuel power plant, and they have to present those to the Public Utility Commission as well. They also have a number of things like we talked about in Arkansas, where it disallows the closure of a power plant based on social goals that go beyond the law that's in place, federal laws that are in place. So the kind of the sue and settle was taken out of the Missouri situation as well, where they would have to basically not be able to come up with a settlement again without Public Utility Commission consent and proof that it would lower the electric rates in that state. Montana passed a bill which basically said to the environmental agency there, also to the Public Utility Commission there, that they cannot include greenhouse gases when they look at permitting processes, when they look at evaluating environmental impact statements, that they are not to use greenhouse gases or CO2 in that state. It's yet to be determined whether it applies to if a utility is doing an integrated resource plan in the state of Montana, and they put in their integrated resource plan carbon, let's say $20 per ton fee when they're looking at future generations, whether that can be used to justify closing a coal plant or not. I think that's yet to be seen, but the way it reads to me, it's beyond the Department of Environmental Quality. It goes to the Utility Commission as well, which basically would disallow the utility from adding greenhouse gases to its integrated resource plan. North Dakota was basically just a resolution, but I wanted to bring it up, John, because it was very, I think, instrumental in basically telling the state utility commissioners when they go to the Southwest Power Pool or to MISO that they vote and support policies that would provide fair competition with the market failures in the wind and solar, having all the credits, federal credits that they're getting out of DC. It's hard for coal to compete. So this resolution basically not only told their Public Service Commission, but told the electric utilities, which have to have a CCN to operate in the state, that when they participate in these RTOs, they're to promote policies that reward electric reliability 24/7 generation in the marketplace. So hopefully that will translate into additional policies within at least the Southwest Power Pool and MISO to reward electric reliability. Ohio passed a bill. They're still in session. That's one state that goes kind of like Congress year round, but they did pass a bill that basically, and this one goes further. It just said no person shall enter into a settlement to shut down or close a power plant, a baseload power plant, or any generating plant owned or operated by a public utility. It doesn't, now this one might get challenged in court. It doesn't say, you know, if it's beneficial to the consumers or if it goes beyond the federal statutes. It just says they cannot do a settlement agreement to close a baseload power plant. So again, in some cases, there might be a situation where that might be looked at as, I'm not sure that they can pass Constitution on it. But again, Ohio is trying to keep their coal fuel generation online. They're tired of the sue and settle situations with the Sierra Club, so they're putting in place legislation that basically goes after that. Utah, most of you know that what the situation out in Utah has been. A huge Intermountain power plant that's been supplying power to the state of Los Angeles. They passed Utah HB 70 this year, which basically establishes as a fair market for looking at keeping the coal plant, at least one unit out of the two. They're very large units. I think they're 800 megawatts each, 800 or 900 megawatts each, but they want to keep at least one or two of those. The state does, and look at public-private partnership, or finding someone that would look at purchasing that coal-fueled plant and marketing to bring in, AI and data centers and other economic development into the state. So that was a good bill that passed in Utah as well. West Virginia is probably the strongest bill of all. Again, I don't know some of this, whether it'll pass muster or not, but basically they're saying a couple of things. One, that the utilities shall operate the coal plants at a minimum of 69% capacity factor, unless it results in increased charges. So they did put a provision in there that would allow the utilities not to have to keep it at 69% or above. They're mandated to keep a 30-day coal supply on site at all time. And then they're also promoting automatic adjustment clauses. There's a number of them, as you know, fuel cost adjustments and other things. But in this case, they're put in law that they encourage the Public Service Commission to promote the coal powered generation adjustment clauses. That would be like environmental pass-throughs for adding environmental equipment, maintenance to the plants, those sort of things that don't have to go through a rate case situation, but they're considered a pass-through or automatic adjustment clause. It basically says promote the ones that affect coal fuel generation, but discourage the ones or prohibit the ones that that are, I guess, natural gas and other types of generation in play there. North Carolina is not final yet. It's almost final. As you know, I'm going to run through the mistake they made back in 2021, I believe, in passing a bill that required not only 50%, 100% reduction of CO2 or zero carbon by 2050, but also adding a 70% reduction in CO2 by 2030, which is really, really tough. In other words, Duke Power was having to, and I don't know if they're on the phone, but they can sure address it probably better than I can. But basically what the law did was require Duke to reduce its carbon by 70% by 2030, which meant closing a number of its coal fuel power plants by 2030. So I think there's a new governor in town. He's still a Democrat, Governor Stein, but the Republicans, I think, have a supermajority in the Senate, and they're one vote short of a supermajority in the House. Anyway, they introduced a bill that would repeal this 70% reduction interim goal by 2030. Passed the Senate. It just last week passed the House. They actually had 12 Democrats join on the House side in voting for that bill. It had some other things in it, construction work in progress, some securitization provisions that were in there as well. So there was a number of things that were added to it, but the primary one we were looking at was getting rid of the 70% carbon interim goal. We expect Governor Stein to veto the bill, and we'll need to keep at least two of the Democrats on board to override the veto. It was passed yesterday, I believe, and it should be on the governor's desk by this Friday, and then he'll have 2 weeks to decide whether to let it become law without doing anything or vetoing it, and the legislature having to come back. Again, the legislature will take July and August off and come back in September. So we're not sure whether the override will probably be in September. It will not, they'll not have time to do it before their summer recess. So we expect hopefully in September to get folks on board. We have heard that a number of environmental groups have targeted the Democrats that voted for the bill and running social media against them and other things. So it's going to be it's going to be a tough situation to keep some of those Ds on board in North Carolina. The executive orders that I mentioned out of Governor Braun's office in Indiana, he basically mirrored what Trump had done. One of them talks about the life extension of coal fuel generation, and he's basically gone out and targeted or told his state agencies, primarily the IURC, Indiana Utility Regulatory Commission, excuse me, to look at doing every way they can to extend the life of the coal fuel generation in the state of Indiana. He basically set out a proclamation that the state agencies should not look at using the social cost of carbon at all in any fees or regulations. And he's also put out an executive order to move forward with a coalition to look at advanced nuclear in the state and promote nuclear power in the state of Indiana. When we go into a state and work to try to get legislation passed, you have to start with something. This is just the covers of a few studies this year that we've produced. Electric reliability in Ohio, one for North Carolina, one for South Carolina. We look at in the Carolinas, not only electricity, but natural gas reliability because of the the inability really to get enough natural gas there because of the pipeline capacity. So have copies of these studies. If anybody, John wants a copy of a electric reliability study that we've done. We use Energy Ventures analysis on a lot of this, and they do an excellent job. I'll just take, for instance, North Carolina real quick and run through a couple of slides. They had a polar vortex this last January, as you know. They found that Duke had to import almost 5,000 megawatts of electricity to keep the lights on, electricity going. The coal fuel generation and the imports provided 52% of the electricity on the worst day, which was January 21st. So we kind of go into the need to keep reliable electricity in place in these extreme events that we see. And in case it's broad-based, like we had with Texas a few years ago, and you're not able to bring in enough imports of electricity, you have a problem. Also, we look at, again, this is a pipeline running through North Carolina. As you see, there's only really one main pipeline, the Transco pipeline. There is Mountain Valley pipeline was finished and constructed, but it only goes through Virginia and it stops at the border of North Carolina. So gas in and out of North Carolina comes through one station in the north and one station in the south. And as you can see, during the polar vortex, those pipelines were totally, well, the one from the north was totally capped out at 100%. The one from the south was almost 100% gas flow through there. So if North Carolina or South Carolina is looking at growing their economy, which they're both booming, getting new gas generation, I know they're looking at building and generation in both states, natural gas, but they really need to keep their coal fuel generation in place until they get ample capacity from natural gas. And you know, they really need some new pipeline capacity, additional pipeline capacity into those states. I'll kind of finish up with this and I'll take questions, but every year we take state legislators on a coal energy tour. We tour mines in West Virginia, underground mines, and then out in Gillette, Wyoming, we tour the large surface mines. We go through power plants. We do a number of things to educate legislators from the coal consuming states. These are legislators that maybe have never been through a mine before, and they're not in West Virginia or Wyoming, but they're in maybe Missouri or Nebraska, or, they could be in one of the Carolinas. So we have those lined up coming up, and we'll have a good group that I think is going to be going on both of those. My wife Pam and I put all that together. We feel like travel agents sometimes when we have to do all the buses and hotels and airlines and everything. But basically what we're about is trying to save states from doing stupidity. So that's the end of my presentation there, and I'd be happy to answer any questions, John.
Yeah, travel agents or cat herders, one of the others. So that's a great service you provide, Randy. Yeah, we are open for questions. If anybody's got them, feel free to type one into the chat box there. I'll keep an eye on it, or you can unmute yourself and do the raise your handy thingy and jump into the conversation however you'd like to go here. I've of course got a couple of questions for you too, Randy. I mean, you've been doing this for a good long time. Is the mood different now? I mean, is there more urgency? How much is this whole, reliability, data center, AI, and is it even becoming more of a national security issue now? What is the mood in these state houses now as compared to, say, 5-10 years ago?
It's definitely changed, and I think all the national attention to it has helped. I think a number of the alerts coming out of the RTOs that have said, we have a date when we need everybody to dial back their air conditioning, or dial up their heating, or whatever it is in the wintertime because of a lack of electricity. I think all of that is happened to recently, and it's got more and more attention of the state legislators. I think they're also we're just finding more and more the utilities, and they're on the line, are questioning, can we really afford to close this plant now, given the economic development opportunities that are out there. And so, when it comes to state lobbying, everybody knows the utilities are big players. So I think the legislators listen to them, the governors listen to them, and I think they're starting to sing a little different tune as well. But we have some of it's primarily the red states, but what we're seeing, John, that's interesting is some of the blue states that have the net zero. We're going to go to no carbon by 2045 or 2040. Some of those are starting to look at ways of getting around that. Illinois, Minnesota, both of those states, I think Wisconsin as well. Now, they haven't passed these bills, but they've introduced bills that create a emergency clause, an escape clause, a way to, if we're looking at running out of electricity, or possibility of electric rates going way up, then we can postpone the net zero by 2040 goal, and it allows some escape routes out of that, to say. And so we're seeing some of those out of the blue states that normally would not do that, would normally be totally moving headlong the other direction. So
yeah, and interesting stuff. Are you anticipating? I mean, this has been a very active last year or so. Are you anticipating more bills coming up in the next sessions, or do you think we've crested a wave here, or what do you think is coming in the future?
no, I see a number of states that haven't acted moving forward. Again, there's the Missouri's done a lot, Arkansas, Kentucky, Utah. There's been a number of states that probably have said, okay, we've done enough. But there's a number of red states that I really see going forward. And a lot of it, as everybody on the line knows, do we have a really hot August? Do we have some outages that take place because of capacity, not because of lines down or tornadoes or whatever? But if we have some outages this summer, or we end up with a tough January, that always plays into it as well.
Interesting stuff. I think the best part of your 8-point chart on the delayed plant closures was the adding up of the tons. I think you said 48 million PRB tons, 12 million Appalachian, about 11 million Illinois Basin tons, annual consumption for these plants that have had closure delays. Aren't those amounts, would it be fair to say that those amounts are conservative because those are drawn on what those plants have been running recently at a little lower capacity levels? If we really do start building data centers and having growth, isn't it possible that those plants could run at even higher levels than that?
Oh, absolutely. And by the way, I keep track of all of those. And when I do keep track of the delays, I add an article, a link to an article which they announced they are delaying it. So these that are listed have backup materials that with them. But I agree with you. I mean, nationwide, I've heard that coal fuel generation is at like 42% capacity factor, and we can go way above that. So hopefully we'll see that take place. And again, I think the 37 plants that I had listed will grow to 60 or more by, well, maybe not by the end of this year, but by the end of next year anyway. I see a number of those taking place. Again, there is a list that I have of plants that are scheduled to close in the last 6 months of this year or in 2026. It'll be interesting to see what takes place with those. I think it's 26 plants that I'll have to go back and look, but I think a number of them will postpone at least a year, if not more than that. And simply because it's hard to get. There's 133 new natural gas plants, either in the permitting stage or the construction stage, early construction stage right now. And as you know, trying to get a natural gas turbine, if it's a combined cycle, you're looking, 5 or 6 years. If it's simple cycle, maybe it's 4 or 5 years, but you're still way out on getting, if you order it today, getting it in and shipped in and that sort of thing. So
equipment and labor too, right? I mean, the demand on the people to build those plants is just really a question as to whether it's physically possible to get all that done in the time frames that need them, right?
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah, interesting stuff. I give the coal market update every year at the Rail Equipment Finance Conference, and the debate on the sidelines is always, will there ever be another coal rail car built? So for years and years, it was a discussion about, no, nobody's ever going to build another coal car in this country. This year, for the first time, there were people expressing an opinion that, with these plant closure delays, somebody's going to go out and build some new coal cars here in the next couple of years. Is anybody, you mentioned the Alaska thing, but is anybody going to go out and build a new coal plant?
Besides Alaska, West Virginia passed a bill to do the siting of a coal plant. And so they're moving forward, their state agencies are, and looking where the best place to build a new coal plant would be. And it put some money toward incentivizing somebody to come in and build a new coal plant. I don't know that it'll happen in West Virginia, but they're very positive. As I was visiting with John, I spoke with Governor Pellin from Nebraska last week, and he's interested in building a new coal plant in Nebraska. I don't know whether that'll happen or not, but they're so close. The way he puts it, we're next door neighbors to Wyoming. We're so close to the Powder River Basin, and I guess doesn't help your members a lot, John, but there's a short rail haul from the PRB down to Nebraska, and he just thinks they need to build a new coal plant there. So
we'll take rail hauls of any length, Randy. It's I think there's a state senator up in Wyoming that's been banging the drum for building a new coal plant up in Wyoming as well. So here's the question: aren't all the same states that are passing these coal legislations, aren't all or most of them also really focused now on nuclear and the small modular nuclear and that kind of thing to meet this exploding energy demand. And my question is, you know, when, you know, if the realities of building new gas plants are tricky and years out, the time frame to build a new small modular nuclear reactor where nobody's ever built one before, as those nuclear timelines get pushed out, does that create an incentive for some of these states who are looking at nuclear too to say, well, maybe we should just go back to the tried and true?
Yeah, I'm not an expert on the nuclear end, but I am hearing that in a lot, everywhere where they're talking coal, they're talking nuclear as well. And they're, you know, they're all, let's get this going as fast as we can. But you're right. I don't know how long it would take to get as small modular nuclear in place. I know a lot of states, even Governor Kemp from Georgia, even though Georgia Power did a big nuclear plant, I think they'd look at that as well and the options that are there. And as we all know, eventually people are going to shift toward nuclear as it becomes available. And let's hope at some point it does. But I haven't I haven't seen a lot of money or there's been some state bills that and resolutions that promote small nuclear module, but I haven't seen a serious effort where I guess they could take the West Virginia coal site for a coal plant and put a nuclear plant there. But there's some that I'm sure are looking at the possible sites for nuclear. But it will take, I agree with you. If a gas plant's going to take 5 years at minimum, I can't imagine what it's going to take to get a nuclear plant on board.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting time. Hey, we're going to wrap it up here in just a minute. So if anybody in the audience has questions, now would be a good time to jump in there. I guess my last question for you, Randy, would be, you know, we've for the first time in a good long time, the industry's got tailwinds, not headwinds. And, you know, the tailwinds that are being created at the federal level with some of the deregulatory activities and that kind of stuff. You know, in order to maintain those tailwinds, don't we need the Republicans to win a couple of more elections?
Well, absolutely. And I mean, it helps to win them on the state level, but you really need to keep the Fed in place that you have in Congress and the White House. And I say that, but it would be huge difference if we had a Republican governor, I would think, in some of these states like Minnesota, Wisconsin, Illinois, Colorado. The governor shapes a lot of that, but again, we're taking a lot of cues out of Washington, and without the Republican leadership out of the White House, I think we would not be anywhere, and the future wouldn't be near as bright as well in the states.
Well, we appreciate it, Randy. That was an outstanding update on what's going on out there. We truly appreciate all the work you do to you know, I don't know if you've ever seen that cat herding video that was at the Super Bowl 20 years ago, but I think that's probably the best job description for what you do, and we really appreciate all the work that you do out in the places where the rubber hits the road. And thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us today. So if nobody else has any other questions, we'll adjourn. We'll be back next month's On Track Live. We'll have Rick Patterson from Loop Capital. Rick is one of the smartest rail analysts in the market out there, and he's going to come give us an update on where he sees the rails going in the future. And of course, there's a lot of talk going on. Just sneak preview. There's a lot of talk going on right now as to whether there can be more Class 1 mergers. You know, are we going to see an east-west merger of some kind? So it'll be real interesting to get the down low from Rick Patterson next month on whether that kind of thing's possible or coming for us. So look forward to seeing everybody back here, same bat time, same bat channel next month. And thank you very much, Randy, for sharing all this knowledge today. Appreciate it.